Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Performance Excellence Forum. My name is Dick Schroyer. I'm a board member of the Greater Rochester Quality Council, which is affiliated with the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce, and I'm really delighted to welcome everybody to today's program. A special welcome to our friends from the Upper Midwest who are joining us today, courtesy of the Performance Excellence Network. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping announcements. I'd like to announce that today's program is being recorded, and the recording will be posted and available through the GRQC website afterwards. You'll receive a link to these materials by the end of this week, hopefully sooner than that. Closed captioning is available for this program. To enable it on your device, find the CC icon on the bottom of your screen and click that. And out of respect for other participants, we do ask that you remain on mute unless you are speaking. GRQC's mission is to stimulate and foster excellence in the products, services, and processes of all organizations and businesses in our community. And as you can see from the slide I'm sharing, we have a loaded calendar this fall. Our next program is the annual Healthcare Forum on December 4th. This year's title is Safety in the Workplace, and the program includes speakers from Rochester's leading healthcare organizations. Our next Performance Excellence Forum is on December 17th, and it'll be about systematic inventive thinking, an effective approach to innovation for organizations in all sectors and across all cultures. I think you'll find it really interesting. Now, by popular demand, we've moved our holiday networking event out of December when everybody's really busy, and we've scheduled it for January 15th at Flight Wine Bar in the evening. We'll have registration open for that soon on our website. And finally, Penn has several upcoming webinars and workshops as well. You can learn more about these and other upcoming programs by visiting www.grqc.org. We are very excited to bring you today's program titled Managing Stress in the Workplace, Strategies for Building Resilience and Well-Being, with our speakers Carrie Carl and Dr. Terry Wu. Our speakers and today's discussion moderator, GRQC board member Wendy Detmer, want to encourage your participation and your questions. Please enter your thoughts and questions into the chat, and we will take as many questions as possible during the Q&A period after the presentations. Okay. So, workplace stress affects every level of an organization, from frontline staff to leadership, impacting morale, performance, and overall quality of services. This session will explore practical ways to reduce stress and build resilience at both individual and organizational levels. Carrie Carl, the CEO at Villa of Hope, will share how the sanctuary model, a trauma-informed network, is being used within the organization to create a culture of safety, connection, and growth. And Dr. Terry Wu will explain how stress affects the brain and human behavior, equipping leaders with science-proven tools to effectively mitigate work and life stressors. So sit back, relax, in keeping with the theme, and prepare to learn about some actionable strategies organizations and individuals can use to promote wellness, balance, and strengthen workplace culture. With that, it is my pleasure to turn the program over to our discussion moderator, Wendy Detmer, who will introduce our speakers.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, again, for coming. It's nice to see so many people come out for such an important topic. So Dr. Terry Wu is going to be presenting first. Dr. Terry Wu is a renowned neuroscientist with a PhD from Vanderbilt University, and he teaches leaders to lead by science, not by chance. His pioneering research into the neuroscience of leadership adds a new dimension to the leadership industry, which tends to rely heavily on anecdotals and unverifiable stories. He has built an original, groundbreaking leadership framework that unveils the intricate relationships between stress, belonging, and leadership. His framework bridges the gap in traditional leadership training by uncovering the neuroscience of why people follow. It equips leaders with invaluable real-world guidance to navigate their challenges. And then Carrie Carl is going to be speaking. Carrie is the president and CEO of Villa of Hope, which is a nonprofit located in Rochester, New York. Carrie has been serving youth and families in behavioral health services for over 25 years at Villa of Hope. Prior to accepting the president CEO position, Carrie supported agency-wide operations and strategy work as the chief operating officer and was concurrently responsible for the compliance program as chief compliance officer. She is a trainer of the sanctuary model, which is a trauma-responsive organizational cultural model. Carrie has a Bachelor's of Arts from the University of Buffalo and a Master of Science Social Work from Roberts Wesleyan. She earned a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt in 2018 and completed a project management body of knowledge and best practices course in December of 2020. So, enough listening from me. I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Wu.
Thank you, Wendy, for inviting me, and good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to explore very quickly about how to reduce stress and prevent burnout by applying scientific principles. First, let's take a moment to answer this question. What do you do to relax? I'd like to see your answer in the chat, so please feel free to put your answer in the chat. What do you do to relax? Exercise, read, walk, good, laugh, cycling, read, good. A lot of healthy ways to relax, good. Read a book, family time, good. Voting, good. Good. Thank you all for sharing. These are all wonderful ways to reduce stress and to relax. However, these stress-reducing techniques are not tailored to specific stressors. That's the gap we're going to fill today. I'll share with you some scientific insights into how to handle your stressors effectively so they don't cause you too much stress in the first place. We all have stressors at work and at home. At work, a stressor can be a deadline, a heavy workload, or a potential layoff. At home, a stressor can be a bad relationship, a sick family member, or financial problems. If we don't handle our stressors effectively, our stress will build up. So today we'll learn how to deal with our stressors so we can reduce stress and prevent burnout. Now here's a fun question. What is your biggest stressor? Think for about a couple of seconds, then write down your number one stressor. If you have a handout, please write down on your handout. If you don't have a handout, that's fine as well. Just write down your number one stressor. This stressor keeps you awake at night. It can be your stressor at work or home. Doesn't matter, just write it down. Things out of my control, yep. Finances. Good, let's put aside your stressor for now. We'll come back to work on your stressor multiple times today. I'll quickly share with you a scientific framework on how to deal with your stressors so they don't cause you too much stress. When we think of stressors, we automatically think of stress. What words come to mind when you think of stress? So again, please write on, put your answer in the chat. What words come to mind when you think of stress? Overwhelmed, fear, anxiety, well, difficult breathing, exhaustion, anxiety, a lot of anxiety, okay? Sleeplessness, uptight, muscle aching, okay, depression, muscle tension, stress, out of control, tired, headaches, yeah. As you can see, very often we talk about stress in the context of health. Stress causes diabetes, headaches, hypertension, insomnia, weight gain, stomach ulcers, anxiety, depression, and even addiction. But very rarely do we talk about stress in the context of leadership. So next, I'll explain how stress and leadership are intertwined. Just a few minutes ago, you all thought about what you do for relaxation, and some of you shared what you do for relaxation. You spend time with your family, you go out for a walk, you play with your dog, you listen to music, or you enjoy nature. These are all wonderful ways to reduce stress. But no one says something like, I feel so relaxed after punching someone in the face, or yelling at someone, or flipping someone off. No one would think that's how they reduce stress. And here's the kicker. According to scientific research, a highly effective way to reduce stress is to give somebody else stress, is to make someone else's life miserable. Who's in a position to do that? It's leaders. Poor leadership is a huge source of stress. Bad leaders and bad bosses are terrible stressors. And this is how stress and leadership are intertwined. So today we'll examine how good leaders reduce stress and burnout and how bad leaders do the opposite. So when you think about this stress passing behavior, as a leader, when you pass your stress on to employees, your employees get stressed out, their performance drops. That's a source of stress to you. And your employees get stressed out, they can reduce their stress by passing stress among each other. So interpersonal conflicts flare up. That's another source of stress for you as a leader. And when your employees get stressed out, they can pass their stress onto customers. Customer satisfaction drops, another source of stress for you as a leader. So all the stresses will eventually get passed back onto you. You got looped into this vicious cycle. So today I'll share with you this quick scientific framework on how to break this vicious cycle to enhance your leadership. And these vicious cycles are so common within the organization. Wherever you look, you can see there's a vicious cycle there. So to break this vicious cycle, we need to effectively deal with our stressors. To deal with our stressors, we need to have these safety signals. These safety signals will calm our bodies and our brains to reduce our stress. The first safety signal is a sense of control. What control means is that you can do something to change the outcome of a situation, and you can do something to make things better. Now, we'll take a deeper dive into what having control looks like. Having control is about having autonomy. Autonomy means you can decide what you do, when to do it, where to do it, with whom to do it, and how to do it. When you have more freedom to make your own decisions, you gain a sense of control and your stress level becomes lower. But we're living in the real world. Very often we cannot have a say in all these 5 elements. But research shows that when we have a say in just one of these 5 elements, it's way better than not having any autonomy at all. For example, in the workplace, employees want flexible schedules. When employees cannot decide what they do, they want to have a say in when they do it. Having that autonomy gives them a sense of control and reduces their stress. A common stressor in the workplace is micromanagement. If you have been on the receiving end of micromanagement, you know how terrible it feels because it's very stressful. Micromanagement is about taking away someone's autonomy. Those who micromanage gain a sense of control and their stress levels become lower. But those who are being micromanaged lose their sense of control and their stress levels become higher. Here's a perfect illustration of how leaders can reduce their stress by giving away stress. Having control also means you have choices. When we have choices, we can decide which one works best for us. We gain a sense of control and our stress levels become lower. During COVID, we have heard the word mandate a lot. A mandate means no choice and no control. Those who put out mandates have more control and less stress. But those on the receiving end of mandates have less control and more stress. Another situation where leaders can reduce their stress by giving away stress. So let's apply this knowledge to your situation. Look at the stressor you wrote down. Rate on a scale of 1 to 7. 1 means you have no control, you cannot change the outcome. 7 means you have total control, you can change the outcome. Let's see where you're at regarding your sense of control. Let's give it 10 seconds. You see some low numbers. Good. Thank you for sharing. Very often, a stressor would not be a stressor if you have a lot of control. Well, you think about the big stressor many people have just experienced, the government shutdown. When it comes to the government shutdown, we don't have any control. But also, we did not have any certainty. We could not predict when the government was going to reopen. So we didn't have any predictability. This leads to the second powerful safety signal, which is predictability. Predictability means if something bad is going to happen, you want to know when it's going to happen, how long it's going to last, how bad it's going to be, and how long it will take to get back to normal. So you have coping strategies to minimize the damage. And not having predictability can be really stressful. I'm from Minnesota. We have a lot of snow. I know in Rochester, you got a lot of snow as well. We follow the weather forecast. Weather is something we cannot control, but we feel at ease with the forecast. If a big snowstorm is coming, we want to know when it's going to happen, how long it's going to last, how many inches we'll have, and how long it will take to get back to normal. So you go to the grocery store before the storm, not during the storm. Many top leadership skills boil down to giving people clear predictability. A top leadership skill is communication. Clear communication gives people predictability and reduces their stress. Think about this scenario. Tomorrow morning, you go to work. First thing, you got an email from your boss. The email says, please stop by my office at 3:30 this afternoon. How will you react to that message? You probably will have some anxiety throughout the day because you have no idea. Yeah, panic. Yeah, you have no idea what this meeting is all about. You may start thinking, well, am I fired? Did I do anything wrong? You have anxiety because the message is so ambiguous, it gives you no predictability. This example shows, well, instead, if the message says, we're planning for a training event, I'd like to have your input, please stop by my office at 3:30. You will have no anxiety because you know nothing bad will happen at the meeting. This simple example shows that why poor communication is a huge stressor in the workplace. Another top leadership skill is trust building. Trust is about predictability. When the leader makes a promise, we predict the leader will keep the promise. If the leader breaks the promise, we lose predictability. The loss of predictability triggers our stress response and erodes our trust in the leader. Another top leadership skill is being fair. Again, fairness comes down to predictability. You work hard and you accomplish a lot. You predict that you'll be rewarded and recognized. If the wrong people and bad behavior keep getting rewarded, again, you lose predictability. The loss of predictability makes you feel like you're not being treated fairly. A highly effective way to add more predictability is having routines. Routines are different from schedules. Schedules can be very random and unpredictable. When you schedule a meeting or a task, it can be any time of the day or any day of the week. But if you have fixed routines, you know what to do and when to do it. That adds more predictability and reduces your stress. Again, let's apply this knowledge to your situation. Look at the stressor you wrote down. Rate on a scale of 1 to 7. 1 means no predictability. Whenever that stressor happens, it's always a nasty surprise. 7 means you see it coming, you have coping strategies. Let's see where you're at regarding your predictability. 1. Oh, wow. Okay. Some low numbers. Okay. Now you understand why the stressor is very stressful. Good. Thank you for sharing. Let's go back to the government shutdown example. We had no control, no predictability. But for over a month, things were not moving. There was no progress. That's why it was so stressful. This leads to the third powerful safety signal, which is a sense of progress. Progress means you're going the right direction or things are getting better. It's a very powerful safety signal. It makes you feel like you have more control, you have more predictability. Again, let's take a deeper dive what having progress look like. Having progress is about reaching milestones. Every parent remembers their child's first step. A tiny step symbolizes big progress. And every parent remembers their child's first word. A simple word marks big progress. But if a child doesn't speak anything by age 2, that can be worrisome for the parents. My mom told me I didn't say anything when I was 2. She was so worried, she took me to see a doctor. I started speaking when I was 2.5. And after I turned 10, it took my mom 2 years to teach me how to shut up. Having progress is about having small wins. When you take baby steps forward, it's way better than running in circles or taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Having progress is about learning something new. Learning is a powerful stress reducer because learning gives a sense of progress. In an interesting study, the research found that learning kept employees more satisfied than relaxation in the workplace. So I applaud you for coming to this session to learn something new. The opposite of progress is boredom. When people are bored, they're very highly stressed. When they're stressed, what do? They can easily pass stress onto someone else. If you have employees who are stuck in dead-end jobs, watch out. This one, interpersonal conflict can flare up because they can pass their stress onto someone else, onto coworkers. And who else can they pass their stress onto? Customers. So when you have employees who are stuck in dead-end jobs, they're bored and they're stressed. They can easily pass their stress onto coworkers and customers, and a lot of trouble will happen. Again, let's apply this knowledge to your situation. Look at your stressor, rate on a scale 1 to 7. 1 means no progress, 7 means you're making steady progress. Let's see where you're at. Okay, see some pretty low numbers. Okay, this is why the stressor is stressful. Here's a quick recap. You got a stressor. When dealing with a stressor, you don't have any control, particularly in progress. You can be under a lot of stress, and chronic stress causes burnout and even depression. One way to understand the importance of these 3 safety signals is see what happens when the 3 safety signals are taken away when dealing with major stressor. Here's a quick, simple experiment to illustrate this point. In this experiment, we use rats. First condition, we give the rat both control and predictability. Let's see how this rat handles a major stressor, which is electric shocks. We put the rat in a cage. Half the floor is electrified. The other half of the floor is safe. The rat can move around freely inside the cage. We give the rat a warning signal. We turn on the light. 10 seconds later, we deliver a shock. We shock the rat a few times with a warning signal. The rat will learn to escape to the other side when the light is on. The rat does not get stressed out under this condition because it has both control and predictability. Second condition, we take away both control and predictability. Let's see what happens. First day, we put the rat in a cage. The whole floor is electrified. There's nowhere to escape the shocks. We shock the rat randomly without any warning signal. We keep shocking the rat without any decrease of intensity or frequency, so there's no progress. We keep shocking the rat the first day, and the second day, we put the same rat in the cage where only half the floor is electrified. The other half of the floor is safe. The rat can move around freely inside the cage. We deliver a few shocks. The question is, will the rat move to the other side to escape the shocks? The simple answer is no, because the day before, we taught the rat to be helpless. We call this condition learned helplessness. This is the animal model for studying clinical depression. So how is this relevant to, think about the first year of COVID. Did we have any control? No control. The virus can infect anyone, any place, anytime. What about predictability? We didn't know how long the pandemic would last, how fast the virus would spread, and when the vaccines would come out. Not much predictability. What about progress? We thought we were going to flatten the curve, but we got wave after wave of infections. A lot of setbacks, not a lot of progress. That's why the first year of COVID was so stressful. Many people plunged into chronic stress, burnout, and even depression. But how is this relevant to leadership? As a leader in the workplace, if you take away control, predictability, and progress from your employees or your followers, you create a culture of high chronic stress, create a culture of chronic stress and burnout. Over time, your employees will lose their pleasure and motivation. They become less engaged and less productive. Once they plunge into burnout and depression, as a leader, you lose your followers. A leader will not be a leader without followers. But in contrast, if you, as a leader, create enough control, predictability, and progress, give enough safety signals, you create a culture of high performance and high retention. This is how stress and leadership are intertwined. And this relationship is rooted in our biology. Our biology is universal. We have the same stress response And from the biology of the brain and the biology of stress, we can explain human behaviors and we can predict human behaviors. The prediction is humans don't do well under chronic stress. As a leader, the toughest job is create the right amount of stress while providing adequate safety signals. But sometimes life hands you a nasty, devastating stressor you have no control over, you have no predictability, and no progress, like caring for an aging parent with dementia. What do you do? If you have outlets, you can handle the stressor gracefully. What are outlets? At the beginning, you thought about what you do for relaxation. Those can be your outlets. One good outlet is to move your body. The stress response evolved, the fight or flight response evolved to move our bodies physically. So when you move your body, you do exactly what your body tells you to do. It's a good stress, good way to reduce your stress. That's why running, walking, biking, and swimming are all powerful stress reducers. Another outlet, I call them meaningful distractions. If you spend time with the people you love, you get yourself distracted. At the same time, you may shift your perspective. You realize what's really important in your life. You may forget about the petty things that cause your stress. Work on your hobbies. You get yourself distracted. You can turn off the fight or flight response. One more way to reduce stress is to have social support. When you have social support, we're all social beings. When we have social support, we feel connected, we feel supported by others. That can blunt our own stress response. But social support is about give and take. You can seek social support to reduce your stress. At the same time, you can give social support to reduce other people's stress. When you reduce other people's stress, you feel rewarded and satisfied. That good feeling can last a long time, and that good feeling can blunt your own stress response. I mentioned this a few times. A highly effective way to reduce stress is to give somebody else stress. Now, with social support, one of the best ways to reduce your stress is to reduce someone else's stress. Let's do a quick rating of your outlets and social support. Let's see where you're at. Then we'll wrap it up. Good, wonderful. Here's a complete framework. I'll just a quick summarize it. You have a stressor, a devastating stressor. If you intentionally can increase your control, particularly progress, social support outlets, you can intentionally find these safety signals, and you can elevate your safety signals or make or find missing safety signals, and you can handle your stressors effectively. When you handle your stressors effectively, you have a lower chance of passing your stress onto someone else. And when you use this framework to support your team members or loved ones to deal with their stressors, to reduce their stress, you have a lower chance of receiving stress from them. This is how you break all the vicious cycle when it comes to stress and leadership. So I'll wrap it up, and I'll hand the microphone to Carrie, and I'll be happy to answer questions later. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. That was wonderful. Yeah, Carrie, you're up.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully put in front of us a pretty traditional PowerPoint view. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I saw Dick raise with the thumbs up. So thankfully that showed on my screen and I was able to catch that. So thanks very much. All right. So I actually, the advantage of going second is that I can be pretty intentional in trying to connect a couple of points that I'm going to share with a couple of points that Dr. Wu shared. So even though we didn't rehearse this in advance of today, hopefully I can build upon and expand upon his content and his presentation. So, and we'll generate some great question and answer time. I think we all know how important this topic is, but when we talk about organizational stress, one of the main indicators of organizational stress can be turnover data. So I found this little cartoon a few years ago and just wanted to share it all with you just to cue that up. So I like to use this slide because it takes something that is really, very biology, science, research based, and it translates it into something we can all understand. So the idea here is the neurons that fire together wire together. And so what that means is when we're subjected to, traditional single large trauma events, that impacts our brain in predictable ways. Similarly, when we're under more of a chronic level of a low or medium or sometimes even a high level stress, that also affects our brains in predictable ways. But the healing things that we can do take this same concept of the neurons that fire together wire together, and it flips the script. So as much as, a chronically triggered and stressed brain functions in a certain way, when we're intentional about what we do to alleviate that, we're able to actually rewire the brain to build resilience and wellness. So the neurons that fire together wire together.
Can we put this in
When we think
presentation
about
mode?
organizational culture, that culture has to
Ooh,
align with
Carrie,
mission.
real quick, I'm sorry. A few people are asking if we can switch it to presentation mode.
I will try. I will tell you,
Okay.
for whatever reason, my laptop does not tend to like presentation mode, but I'm happy to give it a whirl from the current slide. Oh, what are you all looking at right now? Are you looking at the big slide or the presenter mode view?
The
Then you
presenter
just
mode view.
Yeah.
you put display settings at the top.
Okay. Did that fix
There
it?
we go.
Oh,
That's
there you
it.
go.
Okay. All right, I'm being agile here. That stressed my brain a little bit, but it's going to be okay because we're here to build resilience together. All right. So organizational culture, it has to align with the mission, the vision, and the values of the organization. Otherwise, everything else you do winds up going out the window. And similar to what Dr. Wu was talking about is this is definitely a leadership role. It's actually also, in my mind, like an every person in the organization kind of role. So we lead ourselves so that we can effectively lead others. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on some Villa of Hope specific slides, except to say that organizations are just like human beings, and it's all about the journey. The journey can provide a framework. I do have some slides in here I'm happy to share so they can be sent out after today's conversation, just giving folks that don't know about Villa of Hope just a little bit of an understanding of who we are as a nonprofit behavioral health organization here in Rochester, New York. And there is a slide that talks about, the Villa's decision to embrace and ultimately become certified in the sanctuary model. So everything I speak about today is through the lens of the sanctuary model. There's a ton of information on the internet. If you go and Google when this model was created, they weren't thinking, let's make a lot of money off of it. They were thinking, let's build resilience and wellness in across organizations. And so there is a lot that's available out there at your fingertips. And then this would be way too much to go over today, but the point of it is this is a visual that the Villa uses to talk about the marriage of organizational performance and organizational culture, which is something that Dr. Wu touched upon as well. Happy staff are productive staff and take good care of customers. But what you really came here for today is trauma-informed framework and practices. So this is where I'm going to spend most of my minutes with you. So the sanctuary model says that everything we do, we look at and we assess, and then we move forward with through the lens of the self model. There are 4 components to the self model. You see them here. Within that safety circle, there's actually 4 different domains of safety. Oh, see, now that we're in presentation mode, it gets all fancy on me. Progressive reveal. I'm going to go ahead and reveal all these and let you read them. The 4 domains of safety are physical, psychological, social, which is where I made a little note here. This would be the parallel process of not passing your stress on to others and or flipping that script to passing your coping and your balance onto others. And then there is moral and ethical safety as well. So one of the main mantras of the sanctuary model as an organizational culture model and as a trauma-informed change model is this saying, all change is loss. And what it means is in order to move forward towards something new, you inherently have to move away from something that you were doing up to that point. Sometimes I talk about this as, two people fall in love and get married. And so they're moving towards something wonderful, but they have to give up a little bit of who they were individually or how they lived their life individually in order to have a happy marriage. Parenthood is another example. Becoming a parent is a wonderful blessing. You will lose sleep for the rest of your life once you become a parent for one reason or another. So I found this saying and just really liked it because it reminds everyone, including here at the villa, because when you focus only on all changes loss, people are continuously then focusing on the loss side of change. What we want to do is balance the loss side of change with the opportunity side of change, which I think also relates very nicely with some of Dr. Wu's points. Oh, here's another progressive reveal because we're in presenter mode. Okay, there are 7 commitments in the sanctuary model. They are all equally important. They are all pieces of the pie, as you see in this visual, and they do all have their own definitions. So I'm not going to go over these in detail in this presentation, but I will say that open communication, because communication was a point that Dr. Wu made, open communication, first of all, the definition of it is it's good to be honest, it's good to be transparent, it's good to be direct, and you can be open and transparent and direct and not be mean. You can still be emotionally intelligent while you are showing your commitment to open communication. So here we describe it as saying what we mean, but not being mean when we say it. And the connection to what Dr. Wu's comment was about communication in organizations is communication is especially vulnerable to organizational stress. It breaks down fast, it breaks down entirely, it actually then elevates the stress. So when we're working through organizational stress here at the Villa, we try extra hard to pay attention to all 7 of the commitments, but we know that open communication tends to be especially vulnerable in those scenarios. Organizations can choose their own values, their own operating principles. This just happens to be what the sanctuary model provides us as an example of what that can look like. But as you think about building resilience and wellness in organizations, having some kind of set of principles, guiding principles, is a healthy strategy to work with. So that's kind of some framework stuff. And I'm going to keep an eye on the time. Of course, I turned off my phone to make sure it wouldn't ring. Okay, I have about 5 more minutes. So I am going to go through a few examples of concrete tools and practices that I think can be relatively easily adapted and or modified from what the sanctuary model gives us. There is actually a whole toolkit with the sanctuary model, and you can see there's 10 different tools in it. I'm just going to highlight a few of them that I think translate relatively easily, no matter what kind of line of business or organization you have or you're working with. So community meeting. We start every community meeting at the Villa with 3 questions. We come together, whether it's a one-on-one supervision or it's a group of 15 leaders that meet every Wednesday morning at 9:30. Wendy can attest to that here. Why do we do a community meeting? It's a ritual of how we come together to start the work session together. It's got predictability. It shows that social connection. It's the power of the circle. Routine and structure quiet the brain, they quiet the stress. And so that's taking advantage of that trauma science that we know. Oh, and shared responsibility for what then happens in the meeting process as well as product. There are 3 questions for the community meeting. Each of these 3 questions is individually rooted in trauma science about how trauma and toxic stress impact the brain. But I think the broader point here would be build a ritual, a coming together ritual. Make it something that every person in the room participates in some way. Even the way that Dick started this afternoon's time together with, could everyone go into the chat box and introduce yourself so we know who's here? Have some kind of ritual. How are you feeling today? What's your goal for this meeting? This connects with Dr. Wu's comment about progress in the sense of having progress. If we know at the beginning of a meeting what everyone at the table is hoping to accomplish as part of the meeting, then we're better able to work together as a team to make sure we hit the high notes of all those. Oh, so this third question, who will you ask for help? This is the social support connection to Dr. Wu's presentation. And so the rule in the sanctuary community meeting is that you ask someone who's in the room with you, who will you ask for help? I'm going to ask Wendy. And then Wendy responds and validates some form or fashion. She might say, yep, I've got your back. She might say, yes, I'll support you if you need me. She might say, yep, I gotcha. Some kind of social connection in that ritual. Another tool I want to mention is self-care plans. These are proactive. You can have it just in your head, or you can write it down on a piece of paper. Proactive strategies that buffer you against the effects of stress because you know stress is going to happen. We know sometimes like there's going to be that infrequent but high level stressor that hits. We saw that in the conversation already this morning. Self-care plans simply ask us to make a commitment to ourselves to do something or some things on some frequency, some regular frequency, so that we can try to get the brain quieted down enough that it can like more easily handle whatever's going to come, whether that's that chronic stressor or something more significant in a single dose sort of way. In self-care plans, a reminder that we want to pay attention to all four domains of safety. So self-care plans might include physical exercise, calling your mom once a week. For me, psychological safety, prayer is an outlet for that. So we want to be thinking about all the domains of safety as we build safety or self-care plans. Basically, they help keep people safe by helping to regulate their emotions. Yep, I think I covered that one. So I'm going to slide on, keeping track of time. So the reason I have this in here again, well, somewhere in here, sorry, presentation mode throws me off. So there's self-care plans, which is proactive, buffering us against the effects of stress when it happens. There's also safety plans, which is what are we going to do for ourselves after the stress hits, when we're triggered in that moment. Equally important to pay attention to all four domains of safety when we think about what's our safety plan. For me, for years on my safety plan, I had eat a piece of chocolate because I love chocolate. And so if something like triggers me a bit and I'm feeling unsettled and I'm feeling stressed, pop in a little Reese's peanut butter cup. Wendy knows I have a jar of those sitting on my table in my office. Was just like one tiny little thing I could do just to take the edge of that initial, stress reaction, just taking it down a notch. We also have specific ways that we come together in team meetings. I'm going to take a peek at the clock again and know that I have to wrap up. Just know that again, this is about how you go about the work you need to do. Sometimes people think sanctuary instead of productivity. I say, I say productivity is more maximized sanctuary in some ways because of sanctuary. There is also a trauma-informed problem-solving process. So when tension happens between people, there is a process. We come together, everyone defines the problem, everyone thinks ahead of time, how have I contributed to that problem? So you don't get to come in and just point fingers at everyone else. They're the problem. What did I say or not say, etc. And then we only let ourselves spend about a third of the time on the problem because we want to move into solutions. That was really fast. Just a few very small examples. Just remember that resilience building work is never done. It's pretty much every minute of every day, but the more we are intentional in weaving it into every minute of every day, the more sustainable it will be. Woo, that was fast.
I absolutely love it. Both of you guys did such a great job of recognizing the time. I didn't need to tell anybody. That's wonderful. Thank you, Carrie. And so now we have a little bit of time to answer some questions. So the questions asked, will we be able to share these PowerPoints? Carrie, you said you would send it along. Then
Absolutely.
Dick, I'm assuming we can probably get that out then. All right. Okay. So yeah, you guys can send those to me, Terry, if you're willing, then that would be great. What other questions or comments or discussions do people have?
I have a question, and it could be for either Dr. Wu or for Carrie, and that is when you're in a a formal meeting that you have every week, but they don't ever talk about these kinds of things. How do you bring it in initially so that you help change the culture a little bit?
Well, I can tell you how we did it here. We took kind of like an adult learning model and said, guess what, folks? We've been doing some research, we've been getting some training, we've got some new tips and tricks that are rooted in the science of trauma-informed care and stress management and building resilience. So it's going to seem a little crazy at first, but we're going to try some new habits. We tried one new thing at a time. So in the team meetings, we introduced community meetings, and you can imagine, especially, people from facilities or information technology or the finance business part of the organization said, wait a minute, we're going to start meetings with how am I feeling? What is my goal? And who am I going to ask for help? That's social worky stuff. And we said, no, just try it. We're just going to try it. It's going to work. It's going to be okay. Once they get used to it, now it's awkward to not start a meeting that way. I don't know if Dr. Wu has any comments on that. And I always say leaders go first. Leaders have to be champions of it. We don't have to be perfect human beings. We don't have to be experts on the topic. We just have to show a willingness to throw caution to the wind and try something new, and then emulate that. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Wu.
Carrie, I totally agree with your point about the leader should go first because in the organization, very often leaders have this blind spot. They don't understand this innate stress passing behavior pattern. They automatically and unconsciously pass their stress down the chain, down the hierarchy, and then you start all these vicious cycles, and then the leader gets himself or herself looped into all the vicious cycles. So one thing is really, I have been speaking to a lot of leadership groups and conferences to really raise awareness about this behavior pattern. The other thing is, in the organization, very often when it comes to dealing with stress, the first word comes to mind is let's do resilience training. I'll tell you why this is really very, very toxic. So in the organization, you have all the people who are dealing with heavy workload, toxic environment, and toxic boss or manager. And you sit them down in the room, say, you got to do this resilience workshop. You're kind of having this passive aggressive undertone. This is your problem, it's not our problem. Deal with it, or do something else. And the other thing is the resilience trainers come in, they always like a practice yoga, practice meditation, all this generic kind of like generic techniques, which have this assumption you have unlimited tolerance for stress. All you need to do is crank up your stress. Let's hear about this buzzword, grit. You have grit. You can overcome all the obstacles. No, humans have this tolerance, limited tolerance for stress. Once we get into chronic stress and burnout, everyone breaks down. So this is a very, very toxic way to deal with the stress. Instead, that's why I brought in this framework. You want to look at what stressor you have. If you deal with your stressors effectively by elevating your safety signals just by a little bit, I have this assignment on the handout. Practice this on your own or with someone you trust. If your control level is a 3, what does 4 look like to you? And do some brainstorming by yourself or with someone you trust to see what you can do to increase your sense of control by just 1 notch. Even small increases of those safety signals can really make big difference. And say if you have to care for an aging parent with dementia, you have no control, no predictability, no progress. It feels awful. But you don't have to go to the bar. You don't have to beat someone else up. If you have outlets, if you have social support, you can handle the stressor gracefully. So you can find those missing safety signals. You don't have to go through this resilience training because that really doesn't really help you deal with your stressors. Until you deal with your stressors effectively, your stress will not come down. As also, a very important point is as a leader, you want to apply this framework so you don't become your employee's stressor.
Muted. Thank you. We've got another good question in the chat. it's that, we don't want that toxic positivity or minimization of stress, but we all know people who are also like the sky is falling types. What's the thoughts on approaches that work well for both sides of that spectrum?
I think Okay, so something that comes to mind is the all changes loss statement. So there's going to be some people that will naturally pull toward the all changes loss side of that, but that's why at the villa we had to intentionally say, yes, all changes loss and opportunity. Because when we stay in loss and we're grieving the change, the loss, we're not moving forward. And so you can actually have both of those things in the same moment at the same time. It doesn't have to be sequential, but most people that are pulled more to, the stressful side of it are going to pull toward the all changes loss side of that statement. Um, the toxic positivity people might need a reminder, right? We're all trying to be emotionally intelligent for each other. That's one of the 7 sanctuary commitments. And so across teams, like especially across teams, hopefully the leader or the facilitator of different work sessions goes in knowing like you got to kind of validate both of those headsets, um, and let them help each other.
I think toxic positivity, that group of people, I think they're pretty much in denial. Well, denial is a very strong coping strategy because I have this illusion of control. I have control, so I can be positive. I don't care about, all the negative stuff. But you can only have the illusion control until reality, hits back. So that's really not a good way to handle your stressor. Again, you look at your stressor. Do you have these safety signals, and what you can do to elevate the safety signals? But denial is a very toxic way. I have all control, all control. You assume you have control, but in reality, you don't. But sky is falling. We saw this phenomenon at the beginning of COVID. So remember when COVID first hit more than 5 years ago, what did people do at the beginning? So many people went to supermarket or grocery stores to buy toilet paper. So when you're under tremendous amount of stress, all you want to do, your body has this stress response, fight or flight response. It motivates you to do something. But do something, yeah, you can do something, but when you do something that is so meaningless, so counterproductive, it doesn't really help. Again, it goes back to this framework. You look at a stressor, which is COVID. What do you have control over? What predicament you have? Are you making progress? Do you have outlets? Do you have social support? So many people did not really understand how to cope with their stress, and then they did a lot of bad things. They went out to buy toilet paper. They became very aggressive toward other people. They passed their stress on to someone else. Domestic violence skyrocketed, child abuse skyrocketed. There are a lot of aggressive drivers on the highways, but there's not a lot of traffic. So when you're kind of in this situation, the sky is falling, I would say, I wouldn't say don't panic, but look at the stressor. Why the sky is falling? Do you have these control? Do you have these safety signals? What can you do to intentionally enhance your safety signals by just a little bit? So that's kind of how to balance a little bit.
Thank you. And you know what? That puts us right on time there at that 12:55. So, Dick, I'm going to go ahead and send it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And Carrie and Terry, thank you very much for this interesting and informative presentation. I've seen lots of happy thumbs up and comments coming through in the chat, so we're very grateful. And with so many external factors putting pressure on us these days in the workplace, it's nice to know about some actions that we can take to de-stress ourselves a little bit. So, for quality professionals who maintain ASQ certifications, please note that today's program qualifies for ASQ recertification units. We will mail certificates out to all attendees. And a favor that we always ask, we'd appreciate your taking a few moments to complete a short evaluation survey. Your feedback helps us improve programs and also gives us some great ideas for new programs. We deeply appreciate it. Posted the link in the chat window, and we will send that out again later in case people didn't have time to take advantage of it today. So, in closing, We hope that you found today's program valuable and somewhat relaxing. Once again, we thank our presenters, Carrie Carl and Terry Wu, for your presentation. And we thank you for your taking the time out of your busy day to be a part of this program today. Take care, everyone, and enjoy a relaxing afternoon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.